Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the Phoenix pub by Oxford Circus. No Patrick Van Straten today, so we've replaced him with the Yeti himself. Zach Jalab's in the building. How are you?
Cheers. Yeah, not bad, thank you, mate. Yourself?
Off to Qatar, aren't you?
I am off to Qatar.
Qatar.
I am with Sky.
Representing
Indeed.
Sky Sports. How are you,
Football
hamster?
Daily, yeah.
Not going to Qatar. I'm also a little bit ratty because the traffic here was preposterous.
Yeah, and you always get travel sick.
I do.
He moves 4 yards in a car and he's being sick.
I've tried those little bands, dweeby little bands, don't work.
Dweeby.
Have you tried the pills?
Which ones? Let's move on!
Travel sickness pills is what I was referring to there. Anyway, today we are looking at our Premier League team of the season so far because, of course, the World Cup is fast approaching, basically upon us. The Premier League, we've seen 14 or so games now, so we've seen plenty of football, and we can pick some of the best players that we've seen so far. Now, we've each put together an 11. I think we go through it position by position, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because we've picked a lot of the same
defence,
players,
midfield,
probably,
attack?
haven't we? I think, yeah.
Right,
We'll go goalkeeper first, though, because I think there's some good debate around the goalkeepers, because there have been some good performances, but none as good as Alisson.
Are you lot ready for my Jordan Pickford sort of not diatribe? Because that's negative.
So I've taken Alisson, you've taken Pickford, you've taken...
I went for Nick Pope,
Okay.
but I was kind of in between all three, to be honest.
Right. I mean, I do think Alisson is the obvious answer.
Definitely.
But obviously trying to provide for the guys at home, so I didn't want to simply agree with you. But having taken a closer look at Jordan Pickford's credentials, I do think there is a case to be made there. And I'm going to read off some numbers because if I miss some of this research that I was up doing this morning at 6:30 a.m, I'll be very angry with myself.
He wakes up early.
Yes, I've been pretty disparaging about Pickford in the past, but he has gone to another level this season. He's managed to, maintain that penchant for, fantastic saves, but be disciplined, be consistent, which in the past he's perhaps lacked. I mean, conceded fewer goals than Alisson. If Alisson is the benchmark here, let's use him as such. He has a higher save percentage than Alisson, and he's faced more traffic. I think he's actually faced the 4th most shots on target of anyone in the league at current. Alisson has had bigger moments, yes.
Massive moments.
He has, in terms of post-shot XG,
7.
He's produced twice as much, Alisson. So his big moments have been truly special. Moments that maybe only Alisson and Ederson can conjure in the Premier League, right? But across the course of 13, 14 games, Jordan Pickford has been just unnervingly consistent, which is not something we associate with him, right?
Yeah.
He's 3rd in the Premier League for, I think, passes completed over 40 yards. So I bring that up because we readily, praise Ederson, Alisson for that sort of distribution. Pickford has found a new level of consistency with that as well. And I just think without him, Everton are in deep, deep trouble. Without him and another name that I'll mention shortly, I think Everton are in a relegation battle and they build up to the World Cup. And the illusion that they've improved, not dramatically, but a bit under Lampard, I think that illusion is shattered without him. And all that negativity returns, all that fan...
But he is probably their best player, isn't he? Or like one of the 3 best players.
He is, but they're over-relying on him to an extent I don't think you'll find massively in the bottom half of the table. Like the carry job that Jordan Pickford is putting up at the moment is significant, along with a couple of other teammates, but we'll get to them in good time.
Yeah.
I'm going for Alisson. Yeah, I just think it's a tap-in. I mean, to have a post-shot expected goals of 7 after 13 games, to have saved Liverpool 7 goals after 13 games and still be playing for a club that most would consider, one of the elite sides in Europe, really, is just freakish. I mean, if he continues this trend and puts up 21 post-shot expected goals, like it's the biggest overperformance in Premier League history by a goalkeeper by nearly double, which was, I think, David De Gea, wasn't it, in that season where he was saving 100 shots a game for Manchester United. I don't know whether I've ever seen a goalkeeper as good in the 1v1 as Alisson. He's so imposing. 1v1, I always back him to save it. I think without him, Liverpool would be even worse than they are, and they're not at their best right now. He never puts a foot wrong. I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad game.
Yeah, and Liverpool haven't been
Leicester.
great.
Early days when he joined Leicester, I remember him making that's it.
Liverpool haven't been great defensively, but he still is playing behind.
They've been poor.
Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Andy Robertson, Matip's been in and out of the side. Fabinho's obviously been in and out of form. But I think comparatively speaking, Pickford, like I said, facing more traffic, playing behind a
worse defence, for sure.
A worse defence, although I do think it's worth scratching at the surface of Everton's numbers, because I did find some interesting stuff out last night. Like, they've only conceded 14 goals. I think that's the 4th best record in the Premier League, joint 4th as it stands, which looks pretty good.
Their XG against, though.
But some of their underlying numbers are harrowing.
Their XG against, I think, is the second worst.
Third worst expected goals against in the Prem. Understat puts them 18th by expected points. They've conceded 6 goals on the counter-attack, which is the most in the Premier League. They're facing the most shots per game at 17. So I think when you take these things into consideration, as well as the talent deficit, which is what I was trying to get at earlier, then Pickford, it kind of doesn't render post-shot XG. He's a superstar to that level, isn't he? Pickford, basically. He's a Champions League level. He's playing like a Champions League level goalkeeper in a relegation.
Well, they spent 30 million on him when they bought him, right? It was a lot of money to spend on him at that point.
I mean, we haven't discussed your man.
To be honest, I think all 3 are worthy shouts, and if someone put them in their team, I really wouldn't be questioning it, to be honest. Nick Pope came into a Newcastle side obviously looking to go forward, and when you look at how much they paid for him, the improvement in goal is dramatic. He's not maybe the level of Pickford and Alisson when it comes to his feet, that's for certain, but what he has added is just a bit more security in goal, and also when it comes to claiming crosses, I don't know really if there are better goalkeepers in the league for it.
Poundland Courtois, isn't it?
100%. And like Eddie Howe must have just been laughing when he saw that he could get him for free in the summer, and how much of a dramatic improvement that has been. Like, Dubravka was in goal.
Was it free or was it 10 mil?
I think it wasn't free. No, it was I think it was like 12 mil. Something like that. It wasn't
12 mil.
It was cheap for a goalkeeper of his calibre.
And then also, like, looking at Dubravka last night for Manchester United, like, the difference in goalkeeping is just, you got a guy who's more confident in himself, believes in himself, and really, if he was playing, like, you feel bad because, as you said, Pickford's just unbelievable. Ramsdale, who hasn't been maybe good this season as he was last season, but he's also possibly in with a shout as well. I think that could make sense. But yeah, personally, I think all 3 goalkeepers could.
How do we decide?
I think we could just stick by our own decisions, can't we?
Let the fans decide.
We'll just we'll flash our teams up on screen, being built stage by stage. Let
people vote on the end, and stick your 11s in the comments below as well.
Did make a good argument for Pickford there, I have to say. Right back, I think is just no.
Have we all got him?
We've all got Trippier, haven't
we?
You
got Trippier?
I've got Trips.
I mean, there's just no debate there, is
what
there?
A boy, yeah.
Given the classically outstanding right backs in the league, you think of Walker, been injured for quite a lot of the season. Reece James injured. Trent Alexander-Arnold dramatically out of form. I do think he's not at the level of Trippier. I 100% am backing Trippier. I do think there's an outside shout for Diogo Dalot being one of the most improved right back names in that performance. He's definitely gone to new levels under Erik ten Hag that I personally didn't think was possible, but let's be real. It's absolutely Kieran Trippier.
If Reece James didn't get injured and had played the rest of this time, the month or so that's been, I think it probably would have been him, because he was playing to a level that was outrageous. Everything that Chelsea were doing was going through Reece James defensively and also in an attacking sense. But Trippier.
Well, I suppose Reece James, particularly playing wing backs as well, which is worth flagging. You are right.
What is this formation you're playing?
Look, okay.
I think that'll become clear as time goes on. If you try and explain it to the fans now,
I'll explain later on. I'll explain later on at the end. But Trippier might be playing more right centre back than right wing back.
Zach has been experimental. I've gone for Trippier because he's just the most well-rounded right back in the Premier League right now. I mean, to be in the top 20% for interceptions, blocks, aerial duels, as well as being in the top 10% for progressive passes, shot creating actions and expected assists is super, super impressive. In a side that, I mean, they look like the real deal right now, but at the start of the season, we didn't still know. Very much a work in progress. We didn't know they were going to be this good, and I think his consistency, his reliability, his leadership has been at the core of their improvement.
And he's been so good since they essentially signed him back in January, like nearly a year ago. He's just continued to improve game on game.
He's been so good that there is now like no debate who starts at right back between him and Trent at the World Cup. Like if you'd have been going like prior this season, I think a lot of people have still been saying that Trent is the outstanding player here. Trippier's absolutely playing better than him right now.
Yeah, and
there's no doubt.
I'm not sure if he's taken his delivery to a new level or not, or if it's just gone unnoticed at how good it was prior. Because I remember him being really impressive at Burnley and at Tottenham, but this season they have been. There's been a little bit of sauce in there.
Remember as well, he spent that time, I can't remember exactly how long it was, but when he was at Letty, when he got done for the betting thing as well, he wasn't playing football for a period of time. Like the way he's gone from a guy who kind of went to Atleti. I think we all kind of thought, okay, this is it now. That's the way he'll spend his career, or then come back.
Yeah, we didn't think he'd be a Premier League
to
force
then come
again,
back
right?
into the Premier League. I don't think anybody saw that in his future for sure.
Right side of centre back, or for me in my team, he's a right side centre back. For you, it could be any of the 12 centre backs, whatever you thought ridiculous formation. It has to be Saliba, best centre back in the league, right?
I think we've all gone for Saliba. Yours is the heart of defence. Mine is the right side of centre back as well.
Yeah, he's right sided centre back for me as well. I'm just having a look at the teams. I don't understand your formation.
I think I put Saliba in there because he is obviously a monster, and I've actually constructed my 11. I've tried to, unlike Zach, I want the players to complement one another. I want it to make sense when it's down on paper. I know you've gone for the whole meritocracy angle.
Yeah, if we're talking about the best
you've crammed
team
them in
so
there.
far.
If you're playing well, you've crammed them in there, which I respect. But I've gone, for Saliba. Could have been Fabian Schär. Maybe could have been Thiago Silva if I was playing a back five.
I don't think he's having his best season. I'm going to whisper. I don't think he's having his best season, Thiago Silva.
Maybe not as consistent, but I think he's hit some pretty high highs.
He's been very good
as well. But yeah,
I think Martinez was a shout.
I was thinking about the composition of my side.
He's the left side.
I wanted an elite passer and someone with just amazing recovery speed, and I think Saliba is the top dog in both those metrics in the Premier League.
I've not thought like that at all.
I think it needs to be mentioned for Ben White here as well, as a right-sided. Fullback / centre back could technically play in the right side of a back three, which you are playing. Jalab, I just think he's been amazing.
I will say this though, Saliba's not had to do an awful lot of defending. Obviously, when he has in the big moments, he's made it look ridiculously easy, which is kind of what's caught everyone off guard and why we've probably all included him in our side. But he does get adequate cover from Thomas Partey, who's putting up a decent amount of tackles and interceptions in that squad. Ben White. Defensively on the flank, he receives a lot of cover as well. So we would like to see him tested a little bit more. But obviously, Arsenal are just a really
he's
well-oiled machine at the moment.
Well,
against Chelsea, man, Saliba was ridiculous. He made every attack we have look like kids against.
Your attackers.
I said it
was mad.
Van Dijk-esque against Chelsea, but
it was really impressive.
It's going to be interesting, how he
they need to get that. They need to get that
next season.
And they also need to get that new contract signed. If you're the Real Madrid or whatever, Bayern Munich, whatever, you'd be looking at that contract situation with wide eyes.
All right, left-sided centre back. Now I think there's 3 viable names here. I don't know who you've picked. I think for sure Sven Botman.
Yeah, that's who I've got. That's who I've gone for.
Yeah, Sven Botman, who's I've also gone for, is my left-sided centre back, who has just hit the Premier League like a train. Already one of the outstanding young centre backs in Europe, in my opinion. The fact that Newcastle got him over the line is
for the fee as well.
Not only testament to the job Eddie Howe has done, but also the top executives that managed to get that deal over the line. I think that is almost on par with Bruno Guimaraes in terms of quality of signing. Not quite, because we've seen what Bruno's done over a longer period now, but the calibre of name to be arriving at Newcastle in the form of Sven Botman at his age is just freakish, and he is just Rolls-Royce player.
Well, the idea that he could have gone to AC Milan, Serie A champions, playing in Champions League football, and he decided, no, I'm going to go for the Newcastle project and the money.
Decision.
Yeah, and the money.
The correct decision.
That makes me feel sad. The fact he's turned down AC Milan for Newcastle, and I love Newcastle as a club, like a regional club.
Yeah. But he's had a world of a start, and I do think it's very close between him and Lisandro Martinez, who has been Man United's best player by a mile this season. And I know he had 2 dodgy first games. Since then, he's been effectively United's best player in every match. He is just a game-changingly good centre-back signing, and all this crap about his height at the start of the season is now looking comical, isn't it? When you see people kind of refer to that and try and joke about that, because I've seen him play against nearly every one of the best number 9s in the league now. United had an incredibly difficult first 14 fixtures. I think they've played pretty much all of the top 10 already in that first 14 fixtures or 13 fixtures. And Haaland aside, I think he's dealt with them all really well. You think of Harry Kane and that, there was no real problem there. There was the Arsenal front line was a bit of a battle, but no massive problems. Chelsea as well. He's unbelievable on the ball as well.
You saw the difference, him when you've got him or compared to Lindelof or Harry Maguire, like he did against Aston Villa. The things he has, his aggression is so
it's an
impressive.
Absolute disaster. That
he's just an intelligent defender.
For the Barcelona game. Barcelona game out of the Nou Camp suspension is a disaster for United. But I'm still going Botman. I'm going Botman and Saliba as my centre back parents.
Okay, I've gone tried a slightly different route. Let's say I've not gone for the best player. I've gone for someone who again is probably outperforming expectations is doing his manager a favour, let's say. And I've gone for James Tarkowski as my left-sided centre-back. Now, like some of his defensive numbers at the moment, he is doing the nitty-gritty stuff better than anyone in the league at current. Now, I will read these out so I can get them precise. First in the Prem for blocks, first amongst centre-back for interceptions. Only Ben Mee completes more aerial duels. He's third for clearances. Admittedly, hasn't looked as assured when he's been the left-sided centre-back in a back three when Lampard has tried to play a 3-4-3. But I think he's stopped that. He's persevering with the 4-2-3-1. And Tarkowski in that system is just performing really, really admirably. Like I said in the Pickford section, Everton are facing an awful lot of traffic. They're getting cut to ribbons in the transition, and the man is like Leonidas in the 300, fending off wave after wave of attack. Despite the fact that Onana and Idrissa Gueye are putting up decent defensive numbers, people are still finding a way through them and far too easily. And I think the numbers probably will reflect that at the end of the season. But Tarkowski doing himself really proud at current. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to put some shine on him.
Yeah.
I think Dan Burn's a shout too. Dan Burn at Newcastle, depending on where you want to play him as well, but he's also played left centre-back, quite a decent amount in there.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Newcastle names in here, I think, because 100%. They're obviously like the outstanding burst team, aren't they?
Well, that's the thing, right? When you're looking at this, is you expect Man City to be at the top. Arsenal, where they are, is actually a huge improvement. Manchester United being where they, how they played recently is an improvement. But Newcastle went from last season being a team.
They haven't won a game at this stage of the season last year.
Yeah, exactly. A team that were like battling for relegation. I actually think at this point last year they were 19th.
They were, yeah.
To now being third in the Premier League. Like, that's where you're seeing the rise. And actually, a lot of these players are the same players. Dan Burn came in January, but a lot of these players that they have still are players that they were using back then. We'll get onto one of their forwards later on, but it's a mega improvement. I think that's why you probably see so many names.
And that's why I was tempted to include players like Fabian Schär, who have come back from the depths 100%. Of Steve Bruce's bench, for sake. But yeah, let's move on to left
back. Cancelo.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of outstanding left-back options, I don't think. You mentioned one there, Dan Burn, potentially.
Yeah.
Arsenal's kind of been, rotated between Zinchenko and Tierney at times, isn't it? But Cancelo, he's having a great season. He's not having as good a season as he had this time last year. I think his underlying numbers are down by over half, aren't they?
Yeah, down from 0.31 in terms of goals and assists to 0.11. And I sort of went looking, I delved a little bit deeper as to why that might be, and sort of one of the hypotheses I've came up with is that people are just more aware of his threat now. Maybe he's being keyed onto by like various midfielders or whatever. But Bernardo Silva's also gone, for the most part, out to the right wing instead of being in that midfield three, which means that maybe Pep was mindful of the fact they're not as secure in midfield, particularly with KDB and Gundogan in a midfield three, right? You've got two players there. Gundogan loves going forward. KDB practically a 10. So maybe he said to Cancelo, listen, I need a little bit more structure, solidity in the centre of midfield. Can you just park yourself there? I mean, he's still in the top 5% of fullbacks for like 5 of the 6 most important passing metrics. It looks like on FB Ref, he's just completed that segment of football, right?
And he does wear number 7, which is still winds me up.
I think the fact his potency has been diluted in the final third might be a function of his role in the team rather than like how effective he is as an attacking fullback.
And he's so inverted now. Like, he's often like playing alongside Rodri. Like, I kind of agree that the role has changed a little bit, and when he does get in those positions, still looks like insanely dangerous when he's putting in those
worldies
as well, man.
He's
so hard to defend against.
And I feel kind of sorry for some of the City guys, because you can be great and still not get the headlines because Erling Haaland's just taking them all. Phil Foden's doing ridiculously.
Any City players, they're all an absolute pee, mate.
Yeah, it's very hard to stand out. My point being, it's very hard to stand out when Haaland's on 17 goals.
So just to be clear,
18 goals.
At the end of the defence here, so we've gone through the defences here. So your defence is Trippier.
Yeah, my 3 centre backs. And Botman, yeah.
So
and
then I go into the left wing back and
right.
So this is
right
Garth
wing.
Crooks.
Yeah, no.
This season so far, man.
Again, the point being is I looked at this rather than this team is going to be playing and I'm going to try and
Yeah,
make
you
sure
did it the
they're doing
Garth Brooks
this.
way, which is just throw all of the attackers on the pitch because they're
No,
good.
I did it in the way that they still are people that
Listen.
can play kind of in these positions.
You don't have to explain yourself. You did it the way you want to do it, mate,
Indeed.
and just stick to your guns.
Indeed.
All right,
I'm an
defensive
attacking guy.
midfield. Move into midfield then. Let's move into midfield because the shapes vary.
Have we
well, they
all
don't
got
for
the
me and
same?
Chris, but for you they vary massively, don't they? In terms of midfield.
I mean, the centre mids, I'll go with a pretty simple. It's KDB and Bruno.
Bruno's not in my team.
Bruno Guimaraes is not in your team?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He should be. He should be. I'm not going to lie. Bruno should be in my team. But I actually went for
I
went for more legit balance in the midfield. So I've gone for a midfield three of
These teams aren't
Partey,
playing, lads.
Partey, De Bruyne, and Maddison in my midfield three.
Yeah, fair.
I think that Partey, in my opinion, has been the outstanding defensive midfielder in the league this season. I know that Pat thinks, in his words, he's crap or has been crap. I couldn't disagree more. I think when Arsenal don't have Thomas Partey in the side, it is the most noticeable drop-off of any of their rotation players. You know, if a centre-back gets injured, you're back Ben White's playing there. Full-back gets injured. You know, Zinchenko, Kieran Tierney in the forward areas. We've seen at times Gabriel Jesus play in different areas and Nketiah come into the side. But when Thomas Partey is not available and they have to play Sambi Lokonga in the six, the drop-off is so drastically noticeable, as you've seen it at times in the Europa League, away at PSV, and definitely in the League Cup, of course, where they got turned over at Brighton at home. It's just monumental. His output to cover all of the defensive line of the midfield behind a player like Xhaka, who's now super advanced, Ødegaard, who's super advanced. He's playing that Casemiro role, really. And it's just outstanding. So I think it has to be Thomas Partey. I do want to slightly mention Casemiro, going back to my Man United hat again, but putting up like 7 tackles and interceptions.
But it hasn't been this
13
whole
games in the Prem.
season, though. That's the thing. Where it's
I
more
agree,
the
I wouldn't
latter.
pick
It's
him.
the
I wouldn't
latter
pick him,
side
but
of it where he's
he
been very
has
good.
just been outrageous. Like, come into such good form, player of the month for United, and yeah, as I said,
He's
I think
doing
it's
what
like
we expected him to do.
6.7 tackles and interceptions a game.
Yeah.
It's just like by far and away the best in the league, I think, at the moment for a player that's played sort of.
They are
5 or
ridiculous.
6
But he
games.
just does all of the defending.
Yeah, but that's
He
the
does-
same for Partey though.
It is
the same
true,
for Partey,
yeah,
because
Xhaka does
now
go
really is
forward.
much more advanced, and the left back tucks into that central midfield area alongside him, be it Zinchenko or Kieran Tierney. And he's also scored a couple of rockets this season. His passing range is frightening. I think it has to be Partey in the 6 for me.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I kind of went with less of the formation, and
Yeah,
these
you
boys
just
were
threw names
playing
on.
there. And
If
it's
that was the
more-
case, I would have played Bruno.
Yeah,
G,
because
I'm not gonna lie,
Bruno
like-
is a guy who should be playing in the Champions League week in, week out, and
he will be next season.
And for Newcastle, to be quite frank, he's a guy that was wanted by. I mean, I still look at him and you think, how did none of the top 6 sides look at him and try and buy him in January if he was available?
Top 6
for that
sides
fee?
were interested in him. I just think they had reservations about
Yeah.
paying a 36 mil, which obviously Newcastle didn't. And he's only 24, man. He's
ridiculous.
turning 25 soon. But there's still crazy to think there's still upside with this guy. And he's playing in a midfield 3 that contains Joe Linton, who's doing the hard yards, and more power to him for that, and Sean Longstaff.
Who really
Like-
does do the hard yards, man. He just sprints until he's got no legs
But
left.
Bruno still works harder than both of
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Like, this is a guy, what I think is his outstanding quality is that he's a problem solver and he can react to game state because he's such a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
He can be a 6, he can be an 8, but he's got the output of a 10. Like, it's 5 goals and assists in 11 starts this season, which is,
So impressive.
0.5 goals and assists
So
per
are you
night.
playing him as your DM?
I'm playing a 4-2-3-1. I'm playing him next to Rodri, and I'll get onto the rationale for Rodri in just a second. But Bruno Guimaraes, like, let's wheel through some of the stats. I just think there's not many midfielders that compare to him in the Premier League at current. Like, he's not a good midfielder for Newcastle's level. He's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, full stop, right? And I mean, he's both industry and quality, and that mixture is so hard to find that a team like Liverpool must be looking at him right now,
Oh my
thinking,
goodness, imagine.
with you in our side,
Imagine.
we're probably just nailed on to finish top 4 at current. But like, the only midfielder at Newcastle to complete over 50 passes, so they're very reliant on him for starting their moves, for being that possession hub. Top 3% of midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues over the last 365 days for tackles, as well as doing all the attacking stuff, all the ball progression. Top 8% for dribbles completed. Like, it's just such a rare blend of stuff that. Yeah, like I
He's
said,
the all-action midfielder, isn't he? Like,
the top clubs
he's a dream.
must be kicking themselves that they didn't get him. And as good as Eddie Howe is, I don't think they're a top 6, 7 club without this guy in the side.
Yeah, he's an absolute freak. I would love to have played him if, I've gone slightly more realistic with my setup, and it was kind of him versus KDB. And I love Bruno, and he's having the season of his life, and but he's still not KDB.
And he probably won't start for Brazil.
Maybe. I don't know. If Fred gets in ahead of him, it's criminal, isn't it? I'm not.
Does love him.
That's a war crime.
But yeah, for me in that role, in that sort of slightly more dynamic role, it was KDB versus Almiron versus Bruno.
Well, I picked both of them,
and I just KDB is just what's the point of this stage? He is basically going to go down as the greatest central midfielder the Premier League's ever seen, isn't he? I love Roy Keane and what he was doing, and the output of a player like Steven Gerrard in a worse side, and Patrick Vieira, but he's just dwarfing all of what they could do. He's scoring goals for fun from range. He's creating more chances than anybody else in the league. He's on course, I think, to smash all of the assist records again, isn't he? What's he got, 11 or 12? I think he's on for 23, 24 assists, which would just be absolutely ridiculous, breaking his own record. I think he's scored the same amount of goals as Steven Gerrard in 200 less games.
We've not seen a better passer in the Premier League.
I'm running out of words for him. I think he is going to go down in my head as the greatest Premier League midfielder of all time. So I can't leave him out.
And this is without him excelling on the defensive end. That's how good he is going forward.
And Pep was like, oh, I don't think he's playing his best football this season. It's just well, you're probably right. He might be slightly better in previous campaigns, but he's still just on 12 assists, just whipping balls top corner against Leicester to win games single-handedly. And it's not only his ability on the ball, he works like a dog. He just sprints, he's smashed into tackles like a leader. He's understated in his off the field work, but he's obviously incredibly influential in the dressing room. He is just the perfect player, KDB, if you're a manager, isn't it?
If you're a kid growing up, you can't, and you play midfield, you say to them you want to be playing like Kevin De Bruyne, right? That's the kind of guy you want to grow into, and just, you're right. I don't disagree with the fact that by the time he retires, I think there's a very, very strong argument to say he's the best midfielder.
So you've got those two in midfield. You haven't got a defensive midfielder, have you?
No, because weirdly enough, this team isn't playing.
You've got Rodri.
You're getting defensive about it now because you've started to think, what, my team makes no sense
not
on paper.
Because it doesn't matter.
Zach texted me his team and I said, listen, are you sure about this? And he went, yeah, stick it down. It's not as if we're actually trying to put a good 11 together. And I was like, oh.
The title of this video or something like that is the best team so far this season.
Mate, whoever's played Football
if these
Manager,
teams played against each other,
is looking at your team and it's
I've never played Football Manager.
And it's grating on them.
You can praises Garth Crooks weekly. Right. He's just this is the correct decision. One at the back. No. Ronaldo's playing right back.
Let me go over.
Go on Rodri then.
I'll go over Rodri then.
Do you think he's actually been better than Partey this season?
Listen, he is the heartbeat of the best team in the league.
But Arsenal have been the best team in the league up to this point.
No, I still think City have been better. And I also think not that we're talking about last season, but 9 goals and assists from Rodri last season went a little bit under the radar. And I think that has continued this season. Just the way he enables Manchester City, the rest of their team, to be so forward-thinking and to cover so much ground and to be so incisive and precise with his passing. It's freakish how much of a metronome he actually is. And when you do, get a rare counter-attacking opportunity against Manchester City, he inevitably shuts it down to a level, maybe Fabinho was doing last season.
Illegally most of the time.
Maybe Kante was doing 2 seasons ago. To put up, I think, I can't quite remember how many tackles and interceptions he's putting up, but I think it's league average. And to put that up in a side, which is having 66% possession, I think if you adjusted those stats for possession, they'd be off the charts. So just a master at passing through the lines as well. He makes that look so easy, ferrying the ball to KDB, to Gundogan, to Cancelo if he's playing as an inverted fullback. People have just started taking that for granted as well.
But he's kind of the reason why those guys are allowed to kind of just go forward and do what they want. Yeah, facilitator, enabler for sure.
And I don't think he gets enough credit when it comes to defending set pieces. People talk about Manchester City's record from that. When Ake plays, he's 5'9", not the best in the air. John Stones has never been more than half decent in the air. Akanji, I think, is in the bottom 19% for aerial duels this season.
He's been great though.
Rodri is just listen, if you do get a set piece, or you do have a counter, he's the guy that's ending it, that's making you feel like, football is futile. Let's just give everything to Manchester City right now. So yeah, I mean, he just what KDB is going forward, he is coming backwards.
Yeah.
Maybe not to like the best ever degree, but I certainly think like put him in any top side and they improve.
I've got my midfield 3 isn't completed actually. I've just remembered that I've actually played Maddison in my 3 as a sort of 10 in a 4-2-3-1
Martin's
4-2-2.
rolling yours over then.
Well, you think you wouldn't have Madders?
In a 3?
Yeah.
You can play in a 3.
Yeah, I think it's the most advanced in the 3. I think I'm pretty happy with having James Maddison in the 10.
I have Maddison in my team, but I mean, think I'm like right wing.
I mean, what a player! What a season he's having.
You've really fallen in love with him over the last 2 or 3 months as well.
Yeah, do you know what? At the back end of last season, I actually remember saying to myself, like, I'm not that like he did have a good season, but I don't remember being bothered about whether or not he made the England side. I was kind of like, we've got options in there, but I feel like this season, I know he had a great season last season. He's taking his game to new realms of like driving with the ball, coming inside, picking up the ball short. Like he's done this part in the past, but I don't remember him doing it to this level. Like against Everton, there were moments where he was like picking the ball up in his own half, driving 40 yards, like playing 1-2s with pace and power between the lines, and he's just like. If Newcastle would manage to get that deal over the line in the summer, by the way, I think they had a £55 million bid rejected, didn't they? If they'd have gone back in at 65 and he'd have joined Newcastle, like I really think they would be a Champions League side, like for sure.
I mean, Madders as well. I think one of the best things for him, but well, not best things, but because Leicester started so poorly, he shone even more so from their team and kind of was that star there. But he has
was consistently good going forward.
He's
Leicester.
dragged them to back into like a position of power, hasn't he? I mean, what is it? I think it's 27 goal involvement since the start of last season,
ridiculous.
Which dwarfs players like Mount, Bukayo Saka, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden. In a similar sort of role. I can't see Leicester being able to keep him beyond this summer.
It depends what Leicester's plans are for the summer. If Leicester
cash strapped, they need money. Like they've got a bloated squad, and if you're James Maddison and you do well at the World Cup, you've got to go.
I just think if Leicester are able to reject 55 million now, then depending on their situation in summer, unless they're even worse money wise, then I think they might be able to keep him. Depends what they can pitch to him, right?
What can they pitch to him?
But it also depends as well.
They finished 5th twice. They've won an FA Cup. He's not going to achieve any more than that at Leicester.
But it also depends as well on what I think other teams will be looking to come in for James Maddison as well. There'll be a few other top 6 teams maybe think if he continues his same success
that's why he'll leave. Like I don't see what more he can do at Leicester. I think he's absolutely hit his ceiling at Leicester by taking him to back-to-back 5ths, an FA Cup. Leicester aren't going to finish in the Champions League with James Maddison in the side.
I agree to what you said. Mostly, but I think James Maddison, like what top side do you think he's suited for? Because at the moment he is given a sort of free role.
Tottenham are absolutely desperate for a creative forward.
Is he going to play on?
Kulusevski has been missing for 3 months. They've not been able to create a chance.
But how does he fit into Conte's system?
I think in the exact same way that Kulusevski does when he drifts in off the right. Like I think that would be absolutely fine.
But then you've got Son, Kane,
and
Kulusevski and Richarlison as backup.
Well, no, I think they'd be absolutely fine rotating. Like we've seen for the last 4 weeks, we've seen for the last, in fact, 3 months really, Tottenham not be able to create a chance because they've had Kulusevski out injured. Like I think Richarlison and Maddison are totally different players. Richarlison and Son competing for a place potentially. Kane doesn't really have a backup space. Richarlison can kind of play through the middle, but they have no creativity in the team. Tottenham, they have none.
No, I agree, and we've been talking about Malinovsky, haven't we? We've been talking about other players that Tottenham might be able to bring in January
and stuff.
Maybe a bit more of a budget to kind of alleviate those attacking woes. But I think, like I said, Brendan Rodgers gives him so much free license. He gives him a platform to stand out, to produce this freakish output, and he's enjoying being a big fish in a medium-sized pond right now. I think Newcastle as well is set up well for him.
So do I.
Because as good as Almiron has been, who we'll move on to in a moment, like Maddison is 10 times the player. But let us know where you think Maddison should go in the comments. It's a really interesting debate, and I just got to say, I had Maddison on the left, and I had KDB.
Are you playing left wing?
I had KDB at 10. Yeah, because of my right winger. Like I think Maddison historically has played all over the place. And he's got the match intelligence where I really don't think it matters what flank he takes up. He's going to come inside and cause devastation.
So where's he playing with you? Because you've got Martinelli, Trossard and Almiron in your team as well.
Yep, I do indeed. and
Let's join up
Martinelli.
those dots. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, again, these boys aren't going to be playing together, so what does it matter? You've jumped ahead. We kind of jumped ahead in terms of my team for Maddison, but I had Trossard at kind of the left wing or left wing back, depending on how you want to do it, and then I also had I wanted him in the team. And he's been so good this season, Martinelli. So maybe I'd swap them round, actually. Martinelli.
You've gone full Graham Parr.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and he'd love it.
That's working well for him, isn't it?
Trossard this season is like Brighton in general.
Yeah.
This season needed someone in this team, and Trossard's kind of been the guy. More so, I think the first 3 quarters, first half of the season. The kind of second half, he's maybe dropped off a little bit. But at the very beginning of the season, he was.
In the second half of the first half.
Exactly, yeah. Sure. Where we're up to.
But recently
where we're up
under
to
De
now.
Zerbi, he's been hot, man. He's been so good.
Brighton in general have just been ridiculous. And I felt they needed, some sort of representation. And
Suicide
Trossard is the
to
guy
swallow.
that kind of embodies it. And then as for Martinelli, I was kind of in two thoughts about Martinelli or Saka. And my reason for picking Martinelli is that in my head, Saka we already knew was a fantastic player, was playing to a ridiculous level, one of the best wingers in the league. And I've always kind of questioned Martinelli on whether he could have that fitness to stay fit throughout the season. Because there was no doubt there was quality in there, and especially at the beginning, a couple, like maybe last season, it was raw quality. This season, you've been able to see him stay fit, which was one of the biggest issues
You've
he had.
rewarded his form and his fitness by playing him right wing back.
Sure, yeah.
He'll
He'll be over the moon to be in a team with Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne. I don't think he cares.
He is special.
But he needed to get into the team. He's someone who, I think he has like Ballon d'Or potential one day.
Yeah, I'm quite happy for him that he went to the World Cup as well, because there was the preliminary, there was the leaked squad from a Brazilian journalist, wasn't there, that included Firmino and not him. And obviously Firmino has had actually an okay season in terms of numbers, but it's been nowhere near Martinelli's level, who has just driven that Arsenal attack forward at times.
I mean, the Brazil side in general looks
his ability to pinch in at the back post when Saka has it out wide is something that Saka doesn't yet have.
A winger with 9 instincts is like a unique blend.
I think that's
well,
something that Saka doesn't have yet, though, that ability to get in at the back post and arrive late, whereas Martinelli has, like you say, almost like a poacher instinct to arrive at the right time.
But Saka did do it against Liverpool, didn't they?
But they blend. They're a nice
remember.
blend with each other as well, and I think I think there's a future where you see
we're
Martinelli.
talking about composition
yeah,
now. You
yeah,
like
yeah.
Saka and Martinelli
Right,
because they're
actually.
good together.
But you're playing in right wing.
There's a future with Martinelli, I think, where he could start playing number 9 or through the middle as well.
For sure.
One day.
I actually really like your Trossard chat. He definitely deserves more shine, and he's always struck me as someone with the technical capabilities of playing for a really top side. But for whatever reason,
have you not seen every interview he does recently?
He does go.
He is begging for Chelsea to buy him.
He does go quiet in patches of the season.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a good enough explanation for that because I watch Brighton in fits and starts. But yeah, he's always struck me as someone that Tottenham should maybe take a gamble on as backup for Son down that left-hand side, because he's a little bit of a power shop Son, in that he's got wonderful technique. He can cut in on his right. He's got a lovely strike, lovely finish in him on occasion, and he's kind of a power player as well, right? When he's in full flight, when he's on the ball, he is hard to stop. He goes past players with relative ease. But yeah, he's kind of been juggled around the pitch. He's played a number of positions. Maybe he's finally found
Has
a
played
home.
left wing back. So.
Yeah, maybe he's finally found a home.
I think Brighton's a pretty good level for him.
He's able to start. That's the one
which is
thing.
a compliment, because Brighton look,
and they are
Europa
like top
League
10
level.
team. Yeah, exactly. They're a top 10 team. I'm not sure. I think the way that the top sides are setting up, especially with their wide players, which I think is Trossard's best role, is quite. I know that you say about him being a power player. I think that physically, I don't know whether Trossard would be able to carry it into a top 6 side.
Physically, he's always struck me as a very capable player. Not in terms of height, obviously, or how good he is in the air, or how he is in 50-50s, how he is in the tackle, but just shielding the ball, going shoulder to shoulder. I've always been pretty impressed with it.
I would wonder. There's still a big thing where
you'll probably sign him in about 2 weeks.
I think
mate, so you better start praising
as I said,
him now.
the interviews, but
60 mil.
I think it's such a big thing to say. When you're playing, I think when teams play against Brighton, they still go in with the ambition of we're going to get 3 points from Brighton. Whereas when he goes and joins the top 6 sides, teams are defending their players much differently. And so it would be interesting to see how, if he was playing for a top 6 side, how they deal with deep blocks and so on and so forth.
I could see him doing getting a fairly sizable move
Did he
to
get-
like an
did he get-
Italy
how-
or a Spain.
Did he get
I
into
just
the
don't think
Belgium
he's
team?
going to go to. Yeah.
Did
I
he
just
get into
don't
the
think he's
Belgium
going to go to Man City. I can't see it.
It's
happening.
interesting you make that argument with him and Brighton, because I was just making that with Leicester and Maddison, right? It's almost like the team's not built around him as much as Leicester built it around Maddison, but it's like he's given enough freedom to accentuate.
Oh, he's given so much freedom
his
at Brighton.
strengths.
Yeah, I mean, De Zerbi's played him up front at times.
Yeah.
He's never going to be playing up front for Man City.
And the
Liverpool,
manager's
is it?
actively trying to cover his weaknesses with other personnel.
Fabulous player, though. Fabulous player. Almiron, I've got him.
Look, I think
You've not got
purple patch Almiron.
I mean,
Purple patch
given
Almiron.
we are judging this on the first 13
Yeah,
games,
you gotta
he just
say
has
fair
to
play.
be in. But you can't score 8 in 13 playing for
You can.
Newcastle and not be in the team. Nobody else has scored as many goals as him,
but that's-
other than Kane and Maddison.
But that's just some highlights infatuation you've got, because like
It's not. Have you watched him? He's so good now. Against Southampton, when he's driving past 3 players, like knocking players off the ball, playing 1-2, he's
Look,
he's
I am
different
aware
level.
I'm going against the grain here, and I don't want to take anything away from him because his finishing has been absolutely spectacular this season. But if you take a couple of those goals out, I don't see how he stacks up to someone like Saka, who I've gone for on that right-hand side. Saka still has more goal involvements. People saying he's having a little bit of a down season, not his devastating best. He's still got 10 goal involvements in 12 starts. Almiron scored 8 goals. He's outperforming XG massively. If you think he's going to keep banging them in from 25,
But we're not
We're
looking at the
doing it on
future, because if we're looking at the
on the
future, I
first
wouldn't have him in
13
my
games.
team.
I agree.
No, but I still have Saka. Saka is... Almiron, I love him. Love the narrative. Love he's finally come good after, 4.5 years on English shores. He's going to have his best season in terms of output by a mile. But
There's no doubt
Saka
he's
is
a better player.
10 times the player.
There's no doubt, but he's not
100%.
having as good a season as Almiron.
He's still got more goals and assists.
Yeah, playing in a much better team for Arsenal that's been together for a
Are
lot
they-
longer than
they much
Eddie
better
Howe's
at
had
current?
Newcastle. Yeah, they are much better than Newcastle. They are better
yeah,
than Newcastle.
they
right
are,
now.
they are.
And like, what he's the narrative
I
is
know.
also catches you.
But
doesn't
we're
it,
about
with
to all
Almiron?
say Haaland up front, so don't come at me with,
100%.
you have to play Almiron because he's outperforming expectations at Newcastle versus Saka at Arsenal.
But I don't see what difference that makes to play Haaland. I'm going to play Haaland and Kane. I think that Almiron, given where he's come from and where he's finishing now, he's a dead cert for me. A dead cert to be in the team. I think Saka is definitely a better footballer overall. There's no doubt about that. There's definitely better footballers in the league than Almiron. But his story and his ability right now is he's probably one of the best right wingers in the league right now. He was literally being mocked by other Premier League players at the end of last season.
Yeah, but that's personal, not business, and my team is business, mate. Like, Saka is underperforming against XG. He should have 5 goals, apparently. That would take his output to 4 or 5 away from Almiron, admittedly. By that same logic, he's got more assists than he deserves. So there we have it. But I mean, for someone to be like as devastating as he can be in the final third, a match winner at the highest level, which we saw against Liverpool, which we've seen in various other fixtures. And to be as like defensively diligent as he is, like he is such a unique winger. And the only qualms I had was putting Maddison on the right, taking Saka out of my side, putting Phil Foden in. That was the only the thinking that arrived in my bonds.
Foden's
Never
like
liked
shout, yeah, for sure.
Again, I want to stress, I love the Almiron arc, the redemption story, the remontada, but does he get into the best Premier League XI outside of his his finishing?
Well, he's one of the hardest working attackers in the league.
You can't take away the thing that's made him unreal this season.
He's also one of the
That's what
hardest
I'm saying.
working
Take away
attackers in the
Haaland's
league.
goals.
But his finishing has been great, but his output is less than Saka, and he's not doing anything else to an elite degree.
He's the highest presser in the league, isn't he? I thought he had the best, the highest number of pressures of any player in the division. I actually can't think of a harder working forward in the league than Almiron. Like he runs until he's got no legs left for Eddie Howe at times. He carries the ball brilliantly. He scores goals. I think it's got to be Almiron, but we're each their own. Is there another player? I mean, Haaland. We've all got
Haaland. Yeah,
I've also got Harry Kane in my team. I think if Haaland wasn't in the league, we'd be saying like Harry Kane. I've got Harry Kane, Haaland, Almiron as a front three, but
Nice.
like I think Almiron and Maddison could almost split and be like almost like a 4-2-2.
Yeah, I don't really get your
Ralph Rangnick vibes.
Yeah,
a little bit Ralph Rangnick vibes. I just think that Harry Kane, if Haaland wasn't in the league, we'd be saying like, what the hell's going on here? He's on for like 36 goals. Like he's on course right now to have the highest goal output in Premier League history for a single campaign of 38 games. But it's just because Haaland's on course for 60 that we're like not even talking about it, are we?
Yeah.
He's on course to break that
He
record.
just continues to. I mean, Harry Kane, season after season after season, continues to impress. Like there was that little bit of a period where his first month or two wasn't that impressive. You remember that he couldn't score in August or whatever it was, and now he's put that to bed.
Like
And,
the
just
finish
does,
against
and now
Liverpool.
just is that one of the best passes in the
Finish
league
against
as well
Liverpool
now.
was just like, oh, it's Kane. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's from like 3 degrees, like 3 yards out from the byline. It's such a tight angle, and against the best keeper in the league. It's just
Yeah. I mean, just to bring it back to your argument where you're saying you can't discount Almiron because of his finishing in the same way you can't discount Haaland because of his finishing. Like Haaland is putting up, what is it? It's like 18 goal involvements already.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
got
18
17
goals,
goals.
isn't it?
18
No,
goals.
21
18
21 goals and assists
18
in,
goals.
in
Yeah.
12 appearances. Like, yeah, that is just unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if he's not great at build-up play or if he's not a
100%.
creator. Like when you're that good at finishing, fine. Yeah, that's when you're untouchable. But I'm looking at this more holistically with the wingers. So Saka, Maddison, and then Haaland. Like I said,
I think you make a great
we
argument
don't
for
really
it. I
need to talk
do.
about him. Like
Again, I think the people in the comments.
Yeah,
can
let's
really,
put our teams up on
yeah.
screen now, and then you can let us know who you think has the best or the
Remember
correct
that.
team in the comments below. Jalab's team makes no sense.
They're not playing
at all.
real life football.
All right, let's move on to some
Doesn't
quick
matter.
fire questions
not
then.
how people will perceive it.
Let's move on to some quick fire questions. These all came from our Discord as well. So if you're not a member of the Football Daily Discord, then hit the link in the description below. Colmino Jr. says most surprising World Cup omission.
You two both did England videos recently, right?
Yeah. To be fair, I did one for the Talking Point with a bunch of the FD boys, and like the squad that Southgate picked wasn't that different to the one that we picked. We just took Tomori. And we didn't have Gallagher in our team either. Did we take Eric Dyer? I don't think we took Eric Dyer. But yeah, I think Tomori and maybe like Tammy Abraham are the two ones that I feel can be like really kind of like feel bad for themselves. Tomori won Serie A last season, but it's just like when I actually look at what Southgate's done, I also see like, well, look, Tomori's probably not going to play in his team. Southgate's so loyal to some of his players. I can understand why he's done it. But from the England point of view, yeah, Tomori I think is the biggest one, the biggest name that can feel quite hard done by.
Yeah, I haven't really looked in detail at many of the other squads. I noticed that Marco Reus wasn't in the Germany squad and Mario Götze was, which was interesting to me. I mean, I don't watch enough of the Bundesliga at the moment to have like a strong opinion on whether that was the right call. But yeah, certainly for Fikayo Tomori for me, it had to be in. I think he was a consideration to start for me, let alone be in the 26. Given that we took 5 centre-backs, one of them wasn't Tomori and Conor Gallagher got in, I think that was a bizarre pick. But I agree with the rest of Southgate's squad, so I would say Fikayo Tomori.
Renato Sanchez.
Sanchez not going to Portugal?
But he hasn't played this season, has he?
No, which is why I wanted him to go to AC Milan in the summer anyway. Like, this was totally predictable.
Yeah.
Go to PSG, don't get a lot of minutes because the midfielders are playing really well. And obviously, players like Danilo, Vitinha are going to get precedent in that midfield when you've got the forward three that they have. Yeah, I thought it was a poor decision, to be perfectly honest.
It's the money, right?
If he'd gone to AC Milan and he got 1,000 minutes under his belt, 5-6 goal involvements, he'd probably be a shoo-in for it. But as it happens, I think he's only started twice for PSG at the time of recording.
David has the next question, who says, who do you think is the best of the rest in the Prem ATM? Is that a club? I'm guessing he means a club.
Yeah.
I think it's Brighton, isn't it? Yeah, it has to be Brighton.
I don't think you can count
I
Newcastle.
think the work that De Zerbi is doing is just like going massively under the radar. Like he was written off as like by many of the dinosaurs in punditry at the moment, saying, "Oh, he's not. Look what's he got under his locker. He's never managed in the Prem for a massive risk." Like to take over from Graham Potter, who is like one of the most influential managers in Brighton's history and has them playing better football than they ever have, and do it so seamlessly whilst also scoring goals against bloody big teams, like 3 goals at Anfield, 2 against City, 4 past you, 3 at the Emirates. Like they were underperforming XG so often under Graham Potter. They've scored like 14 goals against the top 4 or 5 teams in the league. It's just that's incredible.
I would say like Potter this season did have them performing to finally scoring. Like he did set a fucking unbelievable ground.
There's no doubt,
him to
absolutely no doubt.
Sure.
But there's still problems in that squad, isn't there? Brighton, like no offense to Daniel Welbeck, he's a hard-working player. Like he's still playing regularly up front for him, which is not going to be the case, you'd imagine, come the end of January when I think De Zerbi will be allowed to dip into the market. And they've also had not only Potter leave, they've had heads of recruitment out,
loads
they've
of
had goalkeeping coach, first team coach, head of academy. Like they've literally been like assets stripped by Chelsea effectively. And De Zerbi has like walked in and been like, yeah, whatever. It's been a bit of a slow start for me. I think he was winning his first 3, but now he's just like imperious again, isn't he? And they're playing sexy football.
Yeah, tough thing. Whenever you pull Brighton and whatever it is, cup or league, it's not a fun fixture to play at the moment. They just make games so tough.
Best of the rest. Any other ones? Fulham?
Fulham have been surprising, considering where at the beginning of the season, with the way their transfer window was going, the way that Marco Silva was saying about being really disappointed.
He walked at one stage, Silva.
Exactly. I thought they were going to be in huge trouble. I think I even had them to get relegated this season. But no, I mean, fair play to Silva. Still, they didn't end up signing that many players in the end for what they probably were expected to do. But to be where they are in the league, they are still conceding a decent amount, but they are also making games really tough. And you kind of felt it at the first game when they played Liverpool. And Liverpool struggled then. Obviously, Liverpool's struggles have continued. But I think Fulham's a fantastic shout.
You got one?
No, at this stage, I think Brighton's probably the best answer.
Let's do one personal one then. Let's do, because it is World Cup approaching, Colmino says, favourite World Cup memory?
Ooh.
What's the first World Cup you remember being like
2002, I think. 2002.
06, I think.
I think if we're talking vintage, then like some of the 2002, I just remember that. You remember the ball, that ball. But also, I actually think my favourite World Cup memory is the Kieran Trippier free kick hitting the net in 2018. That's
against Croatia.
It's recent, isn't it?
Getting
But I have never had an elation like that as an England fan prior to that moment. Like that was the greatest moment in international football for me up to that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I still always like having obviously with my dad being from Algeria at Brazil when they ended up.
What about Algeria, England 0-0?
Yeah, what was it Rooney says? Nice to hear your home fans booing you. Yeah.
Sorry, Wayne, we just travelled 13 hours together.
I remember there being a newspaper post the next day saying that Algeria put voodoo on England's on the goal because a black bird had sat on the goal on the post. But no, England versus Germany at the Brazil World Cup, where they took them to extra time and were very close to knocking them out of the World Cup, which obviously they went on to win. It was good fun. Slimani.
England versus Germany.
Sorry,
in the Brazil
Algeria versus Germany.
Algeria. I was going to say, I don't remember England, Germany,
Apologies.
Brazil.
Algeria.
I mean, as Stat Wars purveyors will know, my World Cup knowledge is sus, but I don't think that happened.
Wow.
Yeah, I am not like a real hardcore England fan. Obviously, growing up with like Scottish grandparents, Scottish families.
You're Scottish, mate. Let's be real.
Scottish club. No, but still support England, and I like getting swept up in the World Cup. But I don't like really cherish international tournaments from an England perspective. I like.
There's so many players that you remember.
Weirdly, like one of the weird overriding memories I have. I think it's 2002, and it might have been Brazil versus Turkey, and it's Edmilson kneeing it out of defence, like kneeing it 5 times in a row and bringing it out of defence. And I was like, Dad, what's this all about? Like, Brazil are fucking cool, aren't they? And he was like, yeah. So that little weird things like that started my infatuation with Brazil as well.
It's like for one of the biggest things I have is that I never really remember watching Zidane play for Real Madrid, but I remember watching him play for France and just loving everything he did.
98 to 2002, he was the king of the international scene, wasn't he?
Ridiculous.
All right, there we go. Sunday Vibes done for another week. World Cup. Just a matter of days away, really, at this stage, isn't it? If you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe. Have we got any new content out? Any interviews out?
We've got another team talk coming up, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
With James Allcott and Rory Jennings, so it's spicy.
Yeah.
Talking about
England. A World Cup preview. Yeah. Anything for you boys to plug?
Nah, that's it. All right. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.